Okay, this is Dr. Ken Tennant. This is April 27th, 2017. The segment number 2 for conspiracy to convict in Scott County District Court, Iowa. In the previous video, you heard me speak of the Davenport police filing a false report, which led to the Scott County District Attorney filing a fraudulent trial information, and state judges and justices joining the act by violating their oath of office, and a rigged jury system that wrongfully convicted an innocent citizen who was systematically deprived of rights, denied due process of law, and we were all defrauded of honest government services. Now, on the date that my son was kidnapped, arrested, and held for ransom, bail, he was standing on private property. The police officers videotaped the camcorders. They didn't show him operating anything, yet he was arrested for operation without registration. The pretext for the arrest was harassment of a public official because the police officer began asking him questions for no apparent reason. My son just simply exercised his right to remain silent. And the Davenport police at that point in time converted that right into a crime of harassment of a public official, which was a pretext for further aggression, government overreach, and abuse. They subsequently charged him with operation without registration. They also charged him with operating a motor vehicle while under suspension, and they did a search and seizure that was unwarranted, and they allegedly found a gram of cannabis or marijuana. So we went through a jury trial, and I was really perplexed at how you could find somebody guilty. By the way, the judge dismissed the suspension, operating under suspension, and he dismissed the harassment charge, which was the pretext for all the other charges, which stands logically that the rest of it would be dismissed. But they went ahead and had a jury trial, and what they did is they withheld exonerating and exculpatory evidence. Now, I previously showed you this impound vehicle report, which is only issued to registered vehicle owners. This was issued the very next day by Jasmine Fontaine, 1169 from the Davenport Police Department, to Brian Inman, the registered owner. What we didn't see earlier, and what I'm going to show you now, is the Davenport Police case report. In his narrative on page 3 toward the bottom, it says, after returning to the station, Brian Inman came to the lobby and had the registration paperwork for the bike, showing he was the owner. And he had the assigned plates for the bike, which expired in 2017, which will be this year. This happened back in October 23rd of 2016 by the Davenport Riverfront Bike Park. Okay? So here you have a Davenport police case report that confirms they knew the bike was registered. So how can they charge somebody with operation without registration when clearly the bike was registered? You've got evidence that it was registered in addition to the camcorder recordings from both police squad cars, including Officer Howell. You could hear him calling in the VIN number, cross-checking, verifying, confirming the bike was registered. What we also have here, interestingly enough, is Fred's Towing impound invoice. And at the top it says the reason for impound, inoperable vehicle. That pretty much negates operation, doesn't it? And they have nothing to prove otherwise. They've got absolutely nothing. And we also have an affidavit that was filed in the court. This is a notarized affidavit filed in the Clerk of Court's office at Scott County, February 1st and February 2nd. It clearly states, at no time did Gregory Tennant operate that motorcycle. Well, I had a feeling that we were going to need to subpoena the people that were associated with these documents in order to get it in front of the jury. So we had the sheriff's department under Tim Lane subpoena Jasmine Fontaine and Fred's Towing, and later on Judge Mark Lawson quashed those subpoenas and the return of service. And I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now, and that explains why there was no testimony given to the jury regarding this. But I was quite perplexed at a conviction. How could you convict somebody of operation without registration, let alone any of the other things that they were charging him with? Because there just was not evidence. There was no facts involved. So, for asking those questions, and as you know, I had tried to get this investigated by calling the governor's office and speaking with Larry Johnson, asking them to exercise their authority under Iowa Code 66.10. I also addressed the Scott County Board of Supervisors, asking them to appoint a special prosecutor. Nothing was going on. They're very unresponsive. They're not going to do anything to investigate themselves. I've sent out registered, return mail, certified mailings, asking for judicial notice of these documents. Nothing's going on. So anyway, I went home and I sent a request for an opinion that reads, "Thank you for your service as a juror these past 2 days. It was interesting that the video evidence was requested for reviewing. In that video, you hear Greg stating he doesn't answer questions. He is not wrong to say this. Miranda rights support this. The attorney on Greg's case perhaps was less than effective in conveying that to the jury. We were also concerned that the evidence on audio of Brian Inman, who owned the bike in question and was there, was edited or not presented. He told officers that the bike belonged to him. Brian Inman signed the notarized affidavit and filed it with the court last month. He stated at no time did Greg ever operate his bike. Can you please state what it was that led the jury to ask for the video? Thank you for your time and consideration, Dr. Kenneth Tennant." I say search Kenneth Tennant, U.S. versus Veterans and the First Amendment, and see American Veteran Discarded and Forgotten by Gary Null. Well, when I went to speak to the Scott County Board of Supervisors on the 21st of March, I was met at the back of the room by Sheriff Tim Lane, who wanted to make sure that I got a copy of this order from the Iowa District Court for Scott County. Now, nowhere on this order will you find my name. It wasn't, as far as I know, it wasn't for me. This was the State of Iowa plaintiff versus Gregory Francis Tennant, which, by the way, under the 11th Amendment, this kind of a case is prohibited by the 11th Amendment, and under 18 U.S.C. 1001, these types of cases are frauds, where you have an imaginary plaintiff, as in an all-capital corporate entity. This is an order prohibiting contact with jurors, and you can see this is stamped up here in the corner, a true copy. This was given to me on this date, which is March 21st, and it's got Bailiff Sheriff Deputy Huff's name 8263 on here. And it states that any person who violates this order is subject to punishment for contempt of court if you contact a juror. Well, I never contacted a juror. I contacted a former juror. Okay, the case was over with. So I was not trying to harass him or trying to influence the outcome of his or anybody else's decision. Clearly, if you read the email, which I will have posted for you, you can see that this is not the case. But that doesn't matter in Iowa. Evidence and facts do not matter in the courts of Iowa. There was an order issued to arrest me on a fabricated charge of tampering with witness or juror under Iowa Code 720.4. $2,000 cash only, it was ordered. So when I was arrested, I had spent over 21 hours sitting on a cold steel chair in Scott County's jail. And here you see the official charge count. Tampering with a witness or juror. And again, there's no facts or evidence to support this. It's a ridiculous fabrication. It's an attack on my First Amendment right to ask questions, and nowhere do you see any harassment. Now this complaint from the Scott County Sheriff's Department was filed by Tim Ells, who claims that I tampered with a witness or juror by harassment with the intent to improperly influence them. That's just an absolute fabrication. It's a fantasy. It's a lie. It's misinformation. It's false information. It's a fabrication to suppress the First Amendment. They don't want to be investigated for the crimes that they have perpetrated in wrongfully convicting my son. I hope you take note of this as you see more and more Americans are being oppressed and suppressed, and our rights are hanging in the balance, so to speak. Greg went for sentencing the other day, and the judge absolutely refused. Mark Ray Lawson absolutely refused to hear the exonerating evidence. We tried everything we could to get the exonerating evidence, which includes Fred's towing, and the Davenport police's own report, etc., etc., etc. He absolutely, because people like Tom Waterman have to have a job at the Supreme Court, Darrell Hecht, etc. Every one of them sitting on the Supreme Court, they are all frauds under color of law. Most of these judges in Iowa are frauds acting under color of law. I believe this to be true. My name's Dr. Ken Tennant. Have a nice day.